I can promise you one thing about this episode. If you're a business owner now or want to be, you need what Curtis is going to deliver. Don't miss it. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
And we are very excited about our guest, a tad nervous. This is Curtis Rippee. We have just talking right before we said hello. We've known each other
a long time.
Most of all of our adult lives, if you count 22 adult. Do we count 22 an adult?
Barely.
Yeah. We wanted to have, if you're tuning in via Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever, we wanted to have Curtis, at True North and at Decision Points. We have 4 principles, 4 pillars. 2 of them are personal. 2 of them are professional. On the personal side, we have wealth planning and coaching. And on the professional side, we have what we kind of call business operational excellence. That's this guy. And then we have valuation. What is a company worth? So the reason Curtis is here is he is an expert in a system called EOS. You're going to tell us a lot more about that.
Sure.
But that's why Curtis is here. For many years, he's owned a business, run businesses, and now he's helping business owners really run their business much, much better.
Right.
Where are you from?
I'm a Missouri kid.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Missouri and...
you should be kind of happy right now. The football team's
they're pretty good,
solid.
right? We held our own against Georgia.
I live in Arkansas now, and we can't find a win.
Well, we'll get to finish the year against each other.
Yeah,
right.
And we won't be able to find a win there probably.
I don't know. We'll see. Always a good game. Yeah, I'm a Missouri kid. We grew up there, went to college, University of Missouri, Mizzou, M-I-Z. As Drinkwitz would say, M-I-Z. But then right out of college, came to Dallas to work for, at that time was Coopers and Library, and now PricewaterhouseCoopers. And so, Missouri kid, but have been in Texas for, I'm one of those people who said I wasn't born here, but I got here as quick as I could.
I'd say we all 3 fit the same. Well, you were born.
I was born here.
You were born here.
Yeah, I've been here the whole time, for the most part.
Yeah. We named this Decision Points. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we like to do, Curtis, is walk us through 1 or 2 decision points early in life. Kind of core memories, things that you learned that you said, hey, I never want to do that ever again, or something you learned early on that you're like, that's a habit I need to keep.
Yeah, great question.
Junior high, high school, maybe sports. I know all 3 of us shared that. I know you played sports. Mm-hmm. What comes to mind as something that helped shape you at a young age?
I was an athlete growing up. Probably wasn't a very good one, but I thought I was better than I really probably was.
But
being an athlete growing up was really great in helping me understand that you don't always win.
Yeah.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes it's the losses that teach you more about life than it's the wins. And
everybody says that. No one likes that. Why do you say that? What do you take from? Is there a loss you remember that crushed you as a young person?
Yeah, well, I think of an individual call. We went to the state quarterfinals every year in football, and we lost to the same team every year. And then, but my senior year was the tough one. And but it's like life is full of those times where things don't go the way you want them to go. And it's how you respond to that is as important as anything. And so, pain is short term. But if you can take the pain of a loss and realizing that things don't always go the way you planned, then you can turn those losses and those moments into a benefit. And so, I actually, as you think about it, there's a later time in life where my business didn't go well, and where it was after 2008, and I was really struggling.
A lot of businesses didn't go very well around that time.
Exactly. And so it was a really low time for probably 12 or 18 months financially, and both business and personal. And persevering through that really shaped me in that, times can be dark and sometimes you don't see a path out. And sometimes you just got to keep moving forward, and that path will eventually, it either appears that it was there the whole time and you just didn't see it, or the path, it shows up as a new path that you didn't plan on. And you're like, oh, now I get it. But whenever you're in that dark period where you think there's no path, there's no way out. I remember driving down Northwest Highway and I had no other options. I was driving out. I'm like, I don't know what else. I couldn't control it anymore. And I just cried and just was broken, because I had no next steps.
Did losing 4 consecutive state championships, how old were you? We're all the same. How old were you in 2008 when that happened?
So 2008, I was 42.
Okay. Did that help prepare you in any way, or did it not, for that level of struggle or loss?
It helped, but I mean, when you get to the point where you have kids, you have family, you have employees, and you cannot see a way out, the level of anxiety and stress and brokenness is at a whole different level. So yes, prepare me, but it was just that was a point where it helps me now whenever I hit those points to go, hey, just hang in there. Keep moving, keep stepping forward, because eventually the path will become apparent.
You know, I have a friend who refers to it as the struggle muscle. And I know for me personally, my struggle muscle was not super developed. I had a lot of positive things growing up. My struggle muscle had to get developed around 40 with a wife. And 3 kids.
Well, and it's you may have had a struggle muscle. It may have been just a small muscle. It might not have been the right muscle, right?
I 100% agree. We all have it, but mine was not very strong. Yeah. I was, and I didn't realize how blessed I was. But man, when you take a punch with a wife and 3 kids and business, and it had to get stronger quicker. But I interrupted you. Keep going.
No. Well, Curtis and I we were in conversations during that time, and I remember that season for you, and it was challenging. And we've talked about this before on the podcast, but sometimes the best thing is just to put your head down and keep going. You know, and again, you may not know what the path ultimately is, but in the discipline of just getting up every day and doing the reps and keep going, eventually the path reveals itself and you find your way out. But
I've given that advice so many times to people, Mike, and even I had another situation later on.
I think one of those lunches was at Papado's.
It was, absolutely. And there may have been more than one lunch at Papado's. Yeah. There were a lot of times I went to Scott and went, I don't know what to do. But there was another time later on in my life that it showed up again where I'm like, I don't see a path. And the path, God shows the path at the time that He's ready to show it. And, but now I give that advice often to tell people in their struggle. I'm like, it may look like there's no way out. I promise you, in the right time, the answer will show up. You just got to keep moving.
I still remember, I was thinking I was in my 20s or something. Somebody said at a meeting, showing up is 90% of it. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And when you take a gut punch and you're like, I don't want to show up. You said that multiple times.
Right.
The other thing, and this is one of the things I love about this podcast, is I'm not surprised that we kind of got here so quickly, but I am grateful if you're listening, watching. When that wall hits, all you can see is right here. And the mind goes to the worst case scenario a little bit, but just then go ahead and go to the worst case. Okay, so I lose everything.
Right.
I'm healthy. Some aren't healthy.
Right.
I go bankrupt. I figure it out. Go all the way to the end. Realize that doesn't kill us, makes us stronger, and then come all the way back. Get present, and get dressed and go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. You chose Mizzou. That was pretty easy for you.
Yeah.
Was Dallas a difficult decision, or is this you knew this is where you wanted to come?
Talk about things that happen and you don't know the path. I was interviewing with a bunch of St. Louis firms because I was a accounting major and was going to go work in St. Louis. And crazy story. Back in those days, they would put you in an interview room and all the big four, at that time it was big six accounting firms would, interview you, and you would have an interview time. And I showed up for my interview in this big pool of there's probably 10 people in this room waiting to be interviewed. And so my interview time passes, another hour goes by, and I'm like, I think they miss me. And so a guy walks in and goes, I think y'all forgot my interview. And he goes, really? He goes, what's your name? And it turns out that he was the head HR guy for Coopers and Library. And he said, well, you got time right now? I go, yeah. And so he pulls me in a room. He sees a lapel pin that I have on because it was a University of Missouri lapel pin. I was director of homecoming. Some Baylor folks might argue that they had the first homecoming. Mizzou would argue that we do. We're right. That's okay. We let them believe that they are.
Y'all go search the internet.
Yeah, I have no idea on that one.
And you'll see conflicting things on Wikipedia. But so anyway, and he said, I love your pride in your university. I was director of homecoming at that time, which was a big thing. The whole Coopers and Library team came to an event that night I was emceeing, and they're like, and so they said, hey, so ultimately they said, where would you like to go? And I go, I didn't want to go to St. Louis. I said, I'd like to go to Dallas. My dad had gone to the University of Arkansas, and he came down here. He played in the band. And so he came in here during the Arkansas Glory days when they'd play in the Cotton Bowl. And so he came down. He told me Dallas is a great place. I'm like, I want to go to Dallas, thinking that's not going to happen. Yeah. Sure enough, they call me. I come down to interview, and through a few God ordained just interrelationships to people that I interviewed with, it just clicked, and I came down here, fell in love with it. Mm-hmm. Then I'm married a Texan, and so I'm here, right?
All right, well, let's go there. How'd y'all meet, and when did you get married?
So we met. She moved to, I was at Prestonwood with my friend Doug, and she came
to Scott.
And Scott, yeah. So she came to Prestonwood. We were single, and I'd heard about this new cute girl who had come to Prestonwood, and I was teaching a class that you had me teach, a men's class, and we had a hayride out at this farm. This hayride was at my wife's
no good
farm.
Thing or all good things come from a hayride.
That's right.
I'm not exactly sure.
Exactly. So
sounds like this is a very good thing. We know
this is a good thing. So she actually, her uncle. It was her uncle's farm. And her uncle called her and said, hey, are you coming to the hayride? She says, it's not my class. He goes, well, it's my farm. So she crashed the hayride with her and two friends, with two of her friends. And I never will forget, I turned around. I was talking to somebody. I turned around and I saw this girl in this Texan M sweatshirt. I'm like, that girl's cute. And we met. And so now the rest of the story for the next couple of years, there's conflict between how she interprets it and how I interpret it. But we met then, ultimately started dating about 9 months later, and then married in 1996.
Yep. Kids? How's everybody doing?
They're doing great. I got 3 girls. My oldest is 24 here in Dallas, working for Ernst & Young, doing great. My middle is in Charleston.
No way.
Yeah. She's working for Enterprise, also killing it. So proud of them. Yeah. And then my youngest plays golf at the University of North Georgia. And she's doing great there. Couldn't be prouder of them. So Emma Grace is the oldest, Abigail's the middle, and Ellie's the youngest. And their mama did a good job with them.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know the dad was very important as well.
Well, we just try not to mess it up.
Exactly. Stay in your lane, right?
Yeah, stay in your lane.
First job, second job. Walk us through that early career. What were you learning? What were you doing at Coopers and Librand? What are some decision points that are really shaping you as a young business person?
Yeah, so ironically, I just sent my daughter, my oldest, who's at EY, I sent her a picture of me in my second year staff sitting in no computers, or one computer back in the corner, and just a lot of paper. And I said, this is with me, the same at your age. And so I started out in audit, and then 2 years into there was an opportunity to go into litigation services and be an expert witness in cases. And I was like, I want to do that. And so I moved to the consulting side, loved it. After 5 years, then went to Baylor Healthcare System. Yep. And that's where I spent the next 4 years of my career. Met Kib McKimmons, one of our buddies, and spent 4 years there. But what's interesting is each one of those shaped kind of, your early years of your career, you're trying to figure out who you are. Yep. It's like, who are you? What do you want to be? And so I moved from
What's something you realized you liked or didn't like professionally in those early years?
Yeah, I didn't love audit. And so to me, I wanted to consult. The consulting coaching thing was inbred in me from the beginning. So moving to the litigation side where I could do more consulting was a better fit.
Yep.
And while I will tell you I'm a finance guy or CPA account, that's not how my brain code works. I'm more of a coach, consultant, teacher type. In fact, I wanted to be a teacher growing up, and my dad was a teacher. And he said, "Don't be a teacher. We don't make any money."
Yeah.
And so I've just found different ways to use that skill along the way. But those early decisions were around learning who I really was and what was my gift. We talk about unique ability. What was my unique ability? And so every job shaped that and got closer and closer to what I really loved, and that is helping people be their best self, helping people do what they do best.
So one of my first sort of memories with Curtis was we'll jump ahead for a second and then we can go back, but he had started this fractional CFO company, and we were just getting started. And so he became our fractional CFO at True North. And, you're thinking your fractional CFO is going to come in and, run through all the numbers with you, which you did. But every time you came to meet with us, or every other time or every third time or whatever, you were also bringing some sort of educational conversation to the forefront. It may have been goal setting. It may have been some kind of planning. It may have been, I don't even remember what the things were, but it wasn't Curtis, it was kind of like, hey, here are the financials.
Yep.
But what I really want to talk about is this other thing that, I think you guys need to be paying attention to. And so it was early coaching, early consulting, even though your core business was really to be a fractional CFO.
So I'll tell you, that's how I got into EOS eventually. And once again, I'll step and then we'll come back. But I was doing the fractional CFO, but what I loved was the business coaching piece.
Yeah.
I could do the financial piece, but I'm like, that was a means to an end.
Yeah, it was boring for you.
It was boring for me. It's like I could do it. I'm like, what I loved was how do you take that information and build a better business.
That's right. And that's obviously, I think we've had this conversation, obviously in-house at True North. There are accountants, CPAs, just very black and white numbers, but who could also bring the business acumen.
Correct.
Okay, what do those numbers mean?
There's a strategic element that has to go with the tactical.
100%. I want to, because I know it's important to you. You mentioned unique ability. You want to spend a minute there?
Sure.
Let's talk about that. I know it's been a big part of your journey. How is that helpful to someone listening? What do you mean by unique ability, and how is that helpful?
Yeah, I think I've always thought about it as giftedness. Okay. And then, there's the strategic coach program, Dan Sullivan's program he reframes it and calls it unique ability. However you want to, whatever you want to call it.
That's right.
We're all uniquely gifted with some, hopefully more than one ability, a couple things that we do really, really well, a lot of things we don't do well, but your giftedness, your unique ability, that's where your energy comes from. And so, to the extent that you can spend your days and weeks and months working in your unique ability, it's not work. It's just part of who you are. And so that's how I think about unique ability. And then as I think about an organization, if you can try to get your people working in their unique ability as much as you can over time, then you have this really healthy, thriving organization where people are happy and fulfilled in the work that they're doing. That's how I would define it.
Yeah, same. And just to add I tell people this all the time. I believe we're all gifted to have an impact on those people around us. I think that's a universal gift. And that's what our calling is to help those around us, put others' needs before our own. Unique ability is each one of us have the ability to do it in a unique way. How Scott thinks, how Scott helps people is different than how I help people, different than how you help people. And if you dive deep into unique ability, it's that. It's like, I think most people, when they dive into unique ability, it'll be in some way impacting the lives of those around them in a very impactful way, and the one that Scott says gives you energy. That's why I knew, it's like, I could do accounting, I could do finance, but my passion, unique ability was in teaching and coaching. Now I put learning in there too. But it's like we're universally gifted to impact those around us. We're uniquely gifted in different ways. You definitely have gifts that I don't have. And we're all using those gifts. We're all, having a great time and having a positive impact on those around us, which I think ultimately is what makes us happiest.
I want to sit here. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and so this is relevant for our listeners because, on a couple of different levels. One, if you're a CEO, entrepreneur, and you're getting to work in your area of giftedness, you should be fulfilled. You should be incredibly fulfilled with the work that you do. Oftentimes we meet business owners and entrepreneurs who are burned out, worn out, run down. Maybe they haven't implemented EOS and their business is running them and they're doing everything but their unique ability. And their answer is, I got to sell this thing because it's crushing me. And when really the answer might be, hey, let me get organized, figure out what my unique ability is, hire some people around me, or reposition workloads to get some things off my plate where I'm once again fulfilled with the work that I'm doing. And maybe exiting is not the answer.
I love that. And here's where I want you to take that for a second.
Yeah.
I always love to think in kind of elevator pitch or chunks. If you had 2 or 3 minutes and you had 5 or 6 CEOs, because I know we've all played sports. I think about just this, the ultimate of a coach is knowing you're a starting pitcher, you're a third baseman, you're a hitter, you can pitch for 7 innings. You literally only can pitch for like 20 pitches. It's unique ability. If you're a CEO and if you're talking to him, how can he or she start to think about their team and unique ability? What are some pragmatic things they can do? I know it's a lot to ask for a few minutes, but you got them for just a few minutes. Walk them some practical ways to translate this into their everyday. Yeah,
that's a great question, and we talk about that often. So in strategic coach, it's unique ability. In EOS, we teach delegate and elevate. And so all that is taking everything you do and creating a list, daily, weekly, quarterly, annually, and list them all in a list. And once you have that list, there's a delegate and elevate tool, which has 4 quadrants. The top left quadrant is things that you love and you're great at. The top right-hand quadrant is things that you like and you're good at. The bottom left is the things that you are good at but don't like, and the bottom right is the things you don't like and you're not good at. The greatest thing a CEO can do for themselves is to go through that exercise, and there will be an incredible revelation about, oh, I love this stuff and I don't love these other things. Have their team do it. And you will find that there will be people on the team, oh, I love doing those things that you don't like. And so ultimately that self-discovery exercise then helps the whole team be able to evaluate what they love and what they're great at. It will create tremendous energy and will also allow them to leverage. There's a quote by David Maister. It says 30 to 40, sometimes even 50% of professionals they spend 30 to 50% of their time doing things that could be done by a less experienced individual. And you think about that. If half your time is spent doing things that are below your value, your highest value, that's huge. And so I would do that it's Dan Sullivan's unique ability. It's EOS's delegate and elevate. That is a powerful, powerful exercise.
Here's the other thing about unique ability that I think sometimes gets missed is oftentimes the business owner, entrepreneur doesn't even realize what their unique ability is because it's so innate. It's so a part of them. It comes so naturally. They don't even realize, oh, wow, that's something I'm really good at. And it's oftentimes the thing that other people tell you about yourself. They're like, oh, Curtis, you're really good at this. Doug, you're really good at that. And when you hear that over and over, that's probably part of your unique ability. But you don't see it yourself because it's just who you are. It's how you wired. It's what you've been doing for 30, 40, 50 years or whatever. So using these exercises are helpful because it helps expose and reveal some of these things.
Well, yeah, because there's someone on your team in the bottom right-hand quadrant
that would love to do that work.
And you might be doing those roles and you're not good at them and you don't enjoy them.
Absolutely.
And you think it's a problem with that person. And I know we're kind of starting to get into EOS, but no, they're a really talented person. They're just completely on the wrong position on the team. So let's go.
Can I follow up with this just for a second?
Yeah, go.
So I believe this is something really in the last year I believe people who are poor performers are just people in the wrong seat. And they're not in a position where they're doing what they like or what they love and they're good at or they love. And so it's like we get critical sometimes of those people and think, oh, those people are bad employees. They're not bad employees. They're employees who are in the wrong seat. They're not exercising their unique ability or their giftedness.
They're not set up for success.
Right.
It's a great point.
Yeah, they're just not. We get critical of them, but
we can all think of somebody that you're like, this is a really good person. And they've got a really good skill set, but man, this little piece over here, myself included, man, if I could just fix that about Scott, then it would be really great. The problem is you fix that, then you're going to take away from where their giftedness is. So how do you support, I think about somebody with a business development personality. They're phenomenal at connecting with people, but oftentimes the knock is short on detail, right? Short on the administrative. Well, instead of, oh, you got to be better on this. Let's get somebody in place that's phenomenal at that to give you the support so you can go really unlock the potential that you have, which is to connect and build relationships.
Because somebody great at details is probably going to be a great service-minded person, and all of a sudden you've unlocked exponential potential between both of those personalities.
Amen.
Correct. I love, so Dan Sullivan talks about this unique ability at the individual level, but then he also talks about how do you push it into your organization. And we've started to do that at True North. Probably haven't done it to the depth that we could, but it's, there's a lot of opportunity there when you start to think about it that way.
Let's back up a step. What is EOS? Again, our 4 pillars, kind of operational excellence. EOS is a tool. Walk us through what is it, why is it, give us some background and what drew you to it.
Interestingly enough, as we talk about this topic of unique giftedness, we have what we call the EOS Life. And the EOS Life is 5 things. It's doing what you love, unique ability. If you're doing what you love, you're in the right seat using your unique gifts. With people you love, people that fit the organization, fit the culture, making a significant impact is the 3rd piece. And when you're doing what you love with people you love, you're going to impact. You're going to impact the inside the organization as well as outside. The 4th pillar is being appropriately compensated, which we all want to get appropriately compensated. And the 5th one is having enough time to pursue other passions. Too many times, entrepreneurs, CEOs have no time to do, and some of them don't even know what they love. Yeah. Because they're so wrapped up in their business, it's their whole life, and so they don't have time to pursue other passions. So EOS, so that's the why. That's the why we implement EOS, is to have that not just for the entrepreneur, but everybody in the organization.
Absolutely.
Everybody's doing what they love with people they love, making a big difference, being paid well, and then time to pursue other passions. The what is just we help entrepreneurs and and I say entrepreneurs, smaller businesses, 10 to 250 employees. There's companies outside that for sure, but our target is 10 to 250 employees. And we implement this complete set of tools and concepts that help them get more of what they want from their business. We got to do that by helping them get strong in 3 things called vision, traction, healthy. Vision is making sure everybody in the organization is 100% on the same page with where they're going, how they're going to get there.
Entire company, right?
Entire company, right? How often does that happen? Not very often, right? Number 2 is traction, making sure that everybody is disciplined and accountable and executing that vision, right? Because discipline and accountability so often is lacking in companies. The 3rd piece is healthy, making sure their leadership team and then ultimately the whole organization is a cohesive, functional team that's working together towards the same goal, because most of the time teams are not. And so we do that by implementing some tools and concepts. There's we say no silver bullets or magic pills. It's just good business concepts put together in a very effective system. And so our ultimate goal is to help companies get more of what they want out of their business.
So go.
I have two. So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
And I kind of know the answers. But
Serve me up. Serve it up.
But I want to hear from you. So if somebody says to you, what is EOS? How do you respond to that?
The simplest way, it's a complete set of tools and concepts that help entrepreneurs get more of what they want from their company and live a better life.
Mm-hmm. The way I describe it, which is maybe not the best way, but I liken it to a software. I'm like, this is like, it's not a software. Let's be clear. It's not software.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like you're installing this software into your organization that is going to help your organization run better over time. And within that software, there's all these different, tools that will help your business run better. But it's like you're installing something into the core of the business.
Yep, makes sense.
Because people ask me all the time, well, what is EOS? I try to describe it, and that's the best I can come up with.
Yeah, that's great. I use iOS for your iPhone.
Yeah.
EOS,
Yeah, there you go.
It's kind of the
and
same
then you
thing.
have all the applications sitting on the iOS platform.
How you use your phone is different than how I use my phone, but the underpinning of the operating system is exactly the same.
Yeah, the structure of
The other thing I would say is really not a question, more of a comment, is Gino Wickman, who's the founder of EOS, basically took all the best thinking from all these thinkers. So, think Jim Collins, Good to Great, who would be another one?
Patrick Lencioni.
Like all these guys who've sort of written about and for business over, decades. And he's kind of pulled all the concepts under one roof and created this program that can then be implemented for business owners and entrepreneurs.
So exactly right. It's an aggregation of those. What's amazing about EOS, and I'm a fan for multiple reasons. I implemented it myself back in one of our companies, and we doubled in size in 3 years, and ultimately sold it 4 years later for a multiple we wouldn't have gotten had we not implemented EOS. So it works. I tell people, I'm like, there's no doubt that it works.
Just pause you.
Yeah, sure.
But why? Because that's what ultimately we want to know. Okay, why should I? This seems like a heavy lift, but you just said you doubled or quadrupled and you sold it for a bigger multiple. Why?
Here's the thing. So few companies, if even a leadership team, are not on the same page. You think they are. We have this concept called the dog in your head. And if you sit in a room and you ask everybody in the room to think of a dog, and somebody might think of a Great Dane, somebody might think of a poodle, somebody might think of a dachshund, or a pit bull. Those are all dogs, but they're not all the same animal. And so many times you think, oh, we're on the same page with vision. We're on the same page with where we're going. And then you have them write it down, and just so few. There's just not great alignment within a leadership team, and then for sure within the organization about where we're going. If you can get everybody aligned and knowing exactly where you're going and what their part is in achieving that long-term vision, kind of magic happens, right? It's all of a sudden it's much easier because you're not rowing 14 different ways. You're running the same direction. And then once you do that, it's a common language, it's a common structure, it's common principles. And all of a sudden you think about when everybody's using the same language and the same tools, and Gina's done a phenomenal job of creating these simple tools that I used to think that's way oversimplified. Now I'm like, oh, now I know why.
Simple's better, isn't it?
Well, that's one of our principles. We talk about simplicity, simplify and clarify.
Yeah.
Because what happens, companies as they grow naturally get complex.
Correct.
They just do. And it happens without, so we always say less is more, simplify it, because at the end of the day, when we get too complex, it becomes much more difficult. And so absolutely simplicity, I would say probably one of the biggest things about EOS is the simplicity of the concepts. They're powerful. Don't mistake simple for easy or simple for or not. They're extremely powerful. So I love the system. Again, it's amazing to watch it work.
Here's the other thing that I think is so powerful is that every business should have a vision. Every business probably should have core values. Every business should do an annual plan. Every business should do quarterly planning. Every business should probably have quarterly goals, or rocks in EOS vernacular. But oftentimes we get busy in the business and we don't take the time to do that work. And EOS gives you the framework and the discipline and the accountability to make sure that those things are getting done. And so you have these things that are universal across all businesses. And EOS just sort of says, let the EOS system handle all that, so that if you're a plumber, you can focus on what you need to do to have a better plumbing company. If you're a wealth advisor, you can focus on what you need to do to run a better wealth company. But all that other stuff, like, that's common to all businesses, EOS just sort of takes that and gives you the framework. And then you can apply your creative energy to the things that are unique to your business.
And go ahead. Shocking. The number, if you ask a CEO, entrepreneur, owner of a business, and ask them, hey, where do you want your business to be in 10 years? You would be shocked at how many of them they don't know. It's not because they're not smart. It's not because they're not have great ability. But as Scott said, they're so
in the weeds.
They're in the weeds trying to make running and go, wait a minute, where am I running to?
Correct.
And just stopping. One of the things, the great tools in EOS is a clarity break, where you essentially go somewhere beside your office or your house and you go for an hour with just a notepad and a pen. And I'll tell anybody out there who's listening, whatever, just go do that and just start writing and think about, hey, where do I want to be in 10 years? I mean, that's where Scott works with. He and his team work with individuals, but hey, where do you want to be financially as a family, as a person? Well, EOS kind of says, hey, where do you want to be as a company? Is it, and there are just so few entrepreneurs who go, well, I want to make money and sell it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
But is that clearly articulated? And when and how much and how long do you want to do this? And so just stopping to ask yourself those questions and get clarity about it is so powerful, because as Scott said, we're just trying to make it work. And all of a sudden it's like sharpening the saw. Once you do that, oh, okay, I need to slow down periodically to sharpen the saw. And then what happens after that, it just seems to move much easier.
We implemented it 7 or 8 years ago. And, I often tell people, we've made thousands of decisions over 25 years, but probably the single most impactful decision that we've made in 7 or 8 years. And part of it is it corralled me a little bit, right? Because I'm creative and I come up with a lot of ideas, and I probably drive Mark crazy with some of my ideas, and the rest of the team for that matter. But it forced me to have some discipline around idea generation, and which things could go on the board and we could work on, and which things needed to wait. And so it created this incredible accountability and discipline for me, and then all the way down through the organization. And it's been powerful for us.
Yeah. One of the questions I want, we've got so many business owners listening, and or future business owners. Curtis, they're listening and they're wondering, what's an indication I need this? And I want to say too, Curtis, the first, EOS is not the only system.
No,
it is an operating tool. It's a process.
Correct.
There are others. The point is, it's almost people say, we don't really have culture. No, everyone has culture. You just might either have negative or bad culture or positive. You have some process. It might be a complete disorganized process, but you have a process or something. EOS is one of those. What are indicators that this could be transformative in my company? What's the one or two common things when you're sitting down having a conversation with an owner and he or she goes, that is a pain that I have, and we need to go the next step. I might even start, what led you and Mark 7 or 8 years ago to do this?
Well, we were in pain.
What pain were we feeling?
We were in pain, and we were going through a transition as a company at that time, just turnover with people, and the culture wasn't what it needed to be. So it was definitely.
So your pain was personnel, perhaps.
I think it was people and culture.
People and culture.
And we, because we kind of woke up one day and we were like, this isn't really what we imagined that it would be or could be. And you know, I start with Mark and me.
Yeah.
You know, it's our responsibility to create the culture, and just wasn't what we thought it could be. So it was born out of pain.
Yep.
But I would say also, like, you know, in the last 7 or 8 years, I've probably maybe not had 100 conversations, but 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50 conversations with other business owners and entrepreneurs. And you can tell pretty quickly, you're like, I have a thought for you.
Okay.
You know, because what they're describing is a little bit of chaos and some pain. Usually it's disorganized, things are disjointed. You know, you ask them some simple questions, and I'll defer to Curtis, but you know, some simple questions, and they can't give you good, clear answers like, what's your 10-year vision? What's your 3-year vision? You know, and when they can't articulate it, you're like, okay, there's some opportunity here.
Yep.
Because if you don't know, nobody else in the organization knows.
Absolutely.
If the leader doesn't know where we're going, think about how everybody else feels. You know, we say there's pain points that every entrepreneur has that brings them to the point of, I need something.
Yep.
And it's either they have no life. They basically are working so many hours. Their family's starting to fall apart. They haven't been on vacation in 3 years. And their life is not fun.
Yep.
They're like, they create this business it's no longer fun. Their marriage is struggling. You know, they're not seeing them with their kids. And it can be that, and usually it's a combination of all these. They're not getting the profit that they expect or need from the business. They're like, okay, we're working really hard, and man, we've grown 30% this last year, but the profit hasn't increased, right? So it's a shortage of profit or cash flow. Probably more important than profit. And then the third part, as Scott alluded to, is that we say 82% of all issues in a company are people issues. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got wrong people on the bus, to use Jim Collins and EOS, the people, they don't fit our culture, but they're on our bus and I don't know what to do. Or I've got people sitting in the wrong seat. They're great people. I love them. They're just not very good at their job. And I don't know what to do. And so those are it's usually profit, people, and lifestyle that really kind of go, you know, we need something. And so it's usually reactionary because of some pain, as Scott has said. Sometimes we'll get people go, hey, I'm ready to scale this business. And I need to put a system in place so I can scale it. And so they're kind of on the proactive. And so that's not as often. We're like, hey, listen, I know we're about to grow. And if we don't put some systems in before we grow, I've told many entrepreneurs, I'm like, if you don't fix this, as you said, it can be EOS, it can be something else. If you don't fix this, you're going to kill this business or yourself along the way. And you don't want that. And nor do your employees want that.
It's interesting. The statistic, 82% of, you know, most of your business problems are people problems. And one of the things that I think EOS does well is they have a simple system for evaluating and screening people, both coming in, so with interviews and the onboarding process, as well as how to evaluate people on an ongoing basis. And, you know, the simple version of it is you're basically scoring people along your core values. And then there's, you know, 3 questions that go with it. But that, like, once you start to get that down, then all of a sudden your people issues start to, you know, it goes from 82% to some number less than that. And then you can begin to focus on, okay, well, let's focus on the real work here. Like,
correct.
How do we grow and how do we create
the vision?
Right. But until you can solve those people issues, and one of the things I'll say about having an implementer like Curtis, and there are many great implementers in the EOS system, they bring accountability to that, to the leader, because people decisions often are the hardest decisions. You have someone that you may know is not in the right seat. They've been with you a long time. They're very loyal. You love them and care for them, but you have to make a hard decision. The implementers are great at saying, hey, let's call out the problem here. Let's identify it, address it. And oh, by the way, don't come back in 90 days with the same problem on the board. Like, deal with it. You know, either get them in the right seat, help them transition, whatever the right solution for them and for you is. But that's been huge for us.
Well, and here's the thing that Jim Collins' Good to Great book said, and we talk about in EOS, when somebody's in the wrong seat, they're not happy either.
Correct.
Right. And if they don't fit culturally, they know it. And so as owners, one of the things that, I don't want to make this people decision because I don't want to hurt them. They're going to be sad. They're going to be hurt. But I tell them, I go, almost always 6 months, a year later, those people call back and go, thank you for calling out. And so, because I'm in a better place with a better job, or they're in a same company, a better job.
Correct. You went obviously to, in a sense, they didn't fit your company.
Right.
But most of the time, they're the right person, wrong seat.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's the piece. And once it's magic. I mean, it is crazy. Scott will tell you that whenever you get people right seat, it's like, so it just kind of opens up and the flow just kind of goes. And we always say, if you have to spend a lot of time managing people, you may need to ask where the people in the right seat, because once you put people in the right seat, then it's just about leading them because they're, let's go. Right. And so it just becomes much easier. And, one of the things about implementing EOS, there's usually some churn.
There's some people issues.
There's some people issues because that's why you're there, right? I always tell leadership teams come in and go, we don't have any people issues. I'm like, all right, we'll see.
Yeah.
And they go, we do. And then once they solve those, and you solve those in appropriate time, respectfully, and hopefully you have a great seat for each one of them. And it's like, oh, wow, this is so, I love to watch teams a year after we start implementing, the team that walks in the room versus the team that started. And sometimes, it could be half the people are new and they're like, we've just made such progress. And so if you're struggling with people issues in your company, if you're an entrepreneur, then find a way to be able to identify and solve them.
It feels like one of the things, and I can say, I wish I had known about EOS 25 years ago. I learned
Don't we all?
I learned it 4 or 5 years ago. And incredibly grateful for the company that I was working with. And, we've been able to implement it into our family business. And
good.
When I joined True North, it was amazing, that vernacular. We had that system of how to work.
There's a whole subculture.
Well, there is. But one of the things I use, an analogy for me, is it's almost like to a leader, it puts up a mirror and it forces you to have some real honest, accountable conversations.
Amen.
I think part of that's because of an implementer. Mm-hmm. You're paying this person. There's real money. There's time. Probably paying got you to where I need to. And there's
objectivity too.
Objectivity is so good. Correct. It just all of a sudden goes, we're not aligned. Mm-hmm. And it starts to give you the tools to figure out how to get aligned. One of the directions I want to go right now, Curtis, is why do you, and if you've got an example or two, you've already shared one that you were personally involved with, I think before you were even an implementer. Why is a system like EOS beneficial to an exit? Walk us through.
Yeah, you said earlier, we ended up getting a higher valuation, higher multiple. Mm-hmm. Because of the work that we did with EOS. So talk a little bit about that.
So I'll talk a little bit. So when I had my previous company, we self-implemented. Okay. And it's something you can do. If you want, you can self-implement EOS. I always tell people, we did, and it was fine. I wish we'd have hired an implementer. It would have saved a lot of pain and heartache, because it would have caused to have some conversations that we just kind of swept under the rug, that an implementer would have called out and had us have them. And so I wish we would have, but we didn't. But you don't have to. But one of the things that makes a company more profitable and more fun to run is that when you delegate and elevate and create a system of structure that increases profitability, also does a second thing. It also helps the business be more valuable. But I think one of the things that people who exit having implemented EOS find is that people who buy it, especially those who are aware of what EOS is, go, wow, the operating system's already there. We're not going to have to invest in infrastructure. We're not going to have to teach them how to run the business. The business is already being run using a system, a predictable system. And that is, it's like anything, a business that can run without the owner in place is dramatically more valuable than one that's dependent on the owner. And EOS gives you the ability to leverage and create a system where the owner, founder, is not as a critical role in the long-term success of the organization.
So think about it this way. So oftentimes a business is going to sell to another business that potentially is, rolling up multiples, so you were in the air conditioning space. And so I'm sure your buyer, when they bought you guys, they probably turned around and bought others.
That's right.
So if the buyer has to spend 2 or 3 years getting the business healthy and putting these systems in place before they can go do add-on acquisitions, it's a longer, game plan, longer roadmap. If they can immediately go, wow, all these systems are in place, we can kind of hit the ground running with M&A and really accelerate the growth, that's going to be valuable to them. And so that as the buyer looking in, they're going to really value having this structure in place.
One other thing, because I want you to go a little deeper. Yeah. Why does EOS or the process help mitigate, minimize the owner being plucked out?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, so going back to the discussion before, is if the owner is so critical to business that they can't step out, that means there's a lack of right people in right seats, number one, to be able to leverage that work to. Number two, there's not a structure. One of the things that EOS is great about is there's an operating structure. There is a meeting structure by which everybody in an organization conducts the meetings the same way every time. We call it an L10 meeting. There is a scorecard that tracks measurables. There are ways we set rocks or priorities. There's a systematic way of discipline and accountability on this. So there's we call it an operating system. So there's a system operating that's not a person operating. So many businesses sometimes are they're so dependent on the owner to be able to function because it's their skills or whatever. And so in this case, you've got this underpinning. Everybody's operating the same way, and the leader can step out. One of the things that you'll find in entrepreneurs who implement EOS, they took their first vacation in 3 years. Why? Because they didn't have to be there. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing that what makes it valuable to acquire, going, wow, if this owner's going to make a bunch of money and they're going to check out, that's okay. The system's going to continue to operate because you got right people in right seats. You've got structure. You've got discipline, accountability. And so that's the piece that I can't stress enough, the system aspect of it is where no matter what level of the organization you're in a weekly meeting that's the same structure, at the same time. We talk about the same things. We solve issues. We're all using the same language. Mm-hmm. And that is so powerful to be able to have that infrastructure that so many times, we talk about all the time. People get promoted to manager and they go, hey, good luck. I hope you do well. And they don't tell you how to manage. EOS has a way to tell you how to be a good leader and manager in your department. And we give you some skill sets. We give you some concepts to think about. And, it's just a system. Again, they're nothing magical. It's just they're good business principles.
I want to go back to the 4 pillars for a second. So as Doug stated at the beginning, we have these 4 pillars as we think about pre-transaction planning. And this was all born out of the statistic from the Exit Planning Institute that 72% of all business owners profoundly regret selling their business 12 to 18 months post-transaction. Mm-hmm. So like anything, you kind of go upstream and go, okay, well, why? Why is that the case? And so, as we talked about earlier, we think it's these 4 areas potentially. So maybe they didn't prepare for what's life looks like afterwards. So that's the coaching. Maybe they didn't do their wealth planning. They paid too much in tax, or they missed some opportunities for charitable giving or whatever. Maybe they didn't get enough money for the business, so they missed on the valuation for whatever reason. And maybe part of the reason they missed on valuation was because they didn't have a system in place. They weren't organized. It wasn't a healthy business. And so as we think about our 4 pillars, we come back to this pillar, which is really building a healthy organization. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm thinking about an exit, if I'm exiting in 6 months, probably not time to do
late.
a lot of work,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We'll agree on that. But, if I'm thinking maybe 3 to 5 years out, probably plenty of time. React to that and talk about how much time
that's good.
you really need to get a company healthy. And obviously it's going to depend on how fast the leadership in that company wants to move and how quickly they're able to make change. But, let's just say you've got a moderately aggressive leadership team that's motivated, wants to work hard to get this put in place. How much time do you need to really get the system embedded in the culture?
Yeah, we see on average it takes 2 years to implement EOS. I'm going to go back to something you said about the 4 pillars and why people sell a business. I think, it's just my opinion, I have no statistical evidence to support this. I guess maybe I'd ask this way. I would love to know how many entrepreneurs sell their business before they really wanted to because they were tired, frustrated, and not getting the benefit they wanted.
The grind.
So I'll tell you a story. So the HVAC business, that was a client of mine on my fractional CFO services business. And we had 2 partners that started it, HVAC technicians who did a phenomenal job. And so I was their fractional CFO, and they called me in one day and said, hey, we think we're going to sell the business. They were 41, great business, cash flowing. And I said, why? And they go, well, essentially we've hit a ceiling, a concept we talk about in EOS. We're kind of stuck. We've taken as far as we can take it. And I said, don't sell this business. I said, 2 years from now, you're going to be going, I wish I had a business to run, and you're going to be looking for something else. I said, you're too young. This is the cash flow. Why do you want to sell? And they're like, well, we've hit a ceiling. Well, in EOS, we say you hit a ceiling because you don't have the structure in to be able to scale it. It's too much draining on you and so that was what they were feeling. So ironically, I became their partner and came in and we put a structure in. We sold the business 7 years later, and it grew 2.5 times and sold for a much higher valuation. But they were ready to jump because they didn't have a structure, and their life wasn't what they wanted it to be. So I would love to know, how many people sell too early because that they regret it later. Because I told them, I didn't know any of that stat, but I was like, you're going to regret this in 2 years. And so what we find is when people go, I want to implement EOS. So 2 years later, like, this is awesome.
Correct.
I don't want to sell it now. I'm loving this. Let's keep going. And so 2 years that's a long answer to your question. It's about 2 years.
Well, it's great that you went there, which is
100%.
One of the things that when we talk about pre-transaction planning at True North, one of the greatest outcomes would be that someone ultimately gets to a place where they don't sell.
Yeah.
Because they got EOS implemented, they got their life back. They're very clear about
doing what they love
and what they want to do. And then now they're like, okay, well, I'm actually having fun now. Yeah. Because again, you're going to have 16 hours a day post-transaction for whatever, 20, 30, 40 years. What are you going to do? It's a lot of time to fill. And, oftentimes people go back into business. So if they
go back into business that they just sold.
Right. And that's why I think, so often there's always a little bit of luck involved in business too. And I wonder if I'm going to let you disagree or agree with me. You were challenging them not to sell. It just seems so easy. I'll just start another business that's that profitable. Just generally not as simple as that. The pain was they had lost quality of life.
Yeah.
They knew they could make a little bit of money on the exit, but why were you so strong in telling them you're going to regret this?
I just looked at him at 41 going, I just know how, I was older than them, but I was like, you gotta, in that case, it was a cash cow.
Correct.
That was a great business needed by everybody here in Texas. Everybody needs air conditioning. I mean, it was, and that was one of the reasons I loved it. They built a great culture. I'm like, hey, I want to buy in. I'll come in and let's scale this thing. And so, but that's the part where they were HVAC technicians. That was what they knew. And they went through the pain. I always told them, I go, you did something you don't really even know how impressive it was. You took something from nothing to, a great sized company. I'm like, that's hard work, and it gets harder as you get older, right? And I'm like, ooh, don't short sell yourself in what you've built. You've done the hard work. Now let's take it to the next level. And I think that's sometimes people, they do the hard work and they sell out early.
So well said.
And go, oh, what could have been? And then
I'm not going to lose money here. I'm going to make some money, but yeah, they did not get that exponential growth, which is what you all did in like 4 more years or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And you cannot scale without systems and structure. It's just impossible.
yeah.
Well, and the point you make about those guys being technicians, you know, they knew that business.
Yes.
They knew it well. You didn't know anything about air conditioning, HVAC, but you were able to come in and bring value because you freed them up to continue to do the things that they were good at.
Yeah.
But then you brought this whole other skill set that created the structure in the organization. And as you mentioned, you self-implemented EOS. So you had, that was really your job.
Yeah.
You were sort of an in-house implementer.
That's right.
Amongst other things, of course. But but that, that freed them up and gave them capacity. And then the whole thing got lit.
There's a concept in strategic coach called Who Not How, great book. And that is sometimes it's not just about, it's like, if you can't do something, find who is great at that and partner with them, right? And we can give plenty of examples, even probably sitting here, right? And it's like I wealth management. That is not my gift, and nor do I want to spend my time. And so I find Scott and his team, and I go, take care of me. Because I don't know what I'm doing in that context. And so, and that's the part where they didn't know this at the time, but they came to me, or we decided, I'm like, hey, I became a who for them to take it to the next level. And so that's not about me. That's just about, we have different people, our unique abilities. When we partner them together, help.
A lot of times we see a problem and we're like, okay, I got to go solve that problem. And really the question is, who can I partner with to solve that problem?
That's right.
Because a lot of times it's not something that's our giftedness or our unique ability. And Doug's a perfect example of that.
Right.
We've been wanting to do, podcasts for a long time and been talking about it. And Holly Wilkins, our director of marketing, and I've been working on it. And Doug shows up on our doorstep one day and we're like, hey, this is a who, not how, right?
Absolutely.
So
perfect.
Last minute or two here. I really want, I know all three of us strongly believe in this because we've all owned businesses and we all wish we had heard this. I mean, this is challenge, encourage, ask questions. You got business owners listening. How do you want to encourage them to take this conversation seriously about whether this is right for them? Again, it's not only EOS, but some type of operational thinking and structural process.
I think I go back to, I mentioned earlier, the clarity break is I would think going back and just spending some time, whether maybe it's going to a house for a weekend, and just spending some time not in the day to day and just journaling and writing, what do I want? What do I want from this? If I could have it exactly the way I wanted to, what do I want the next 10 years of my life? Not the pain I feel today, but if I could do it perfectly, what do I want? Draw that picture in words or whatever, free think, just let it go, sit on a patio, just do something or maybe it's go for a hike, wherever your brain frees up.
Yeah, that's good.
Sometimes it's, in the woods, sometimes it's riding their bike, whatever, think, and then try to come up with some clarity about what you want and then say, okay, how do I go about getting that? And that's when I go and say, hey, whether it's talking to an EOS implementer or going to the EOS Worldwide website and seeing that as a structure to say, hey, well, how would I go about executing that long-term vision using a tool? Because, and then before that, I think if you have a partner or if you have a leadership team, sit down with them and have them do a similar exercise and say, are we on the same page? And very quickly you realize that you're not building the same company. You don't have the same goals. And I think that will make it self-evident that there needs to be a further exploration of solutions. And then you can read the book Traction. Traction is written by Gino Wickman. If you want to just go and order that or listen to that on Audible. But that's a great outline. How I decided to implement. So Mark Winters, who is Scott's implementer, phenomenal guy, wrote Rocket Fuel, incredible implementer.
We'll have Mark on an upcoming podcast.
Awesome. And I've been friends with Mark before we were EOS implementers, and he's just a phenomenal guy.
I feel like so many entrepreneurs, me included, business owners, are control freaks. Do I lose control implementing a structure? Yes or no? And if so, why is that positive for me and the company?
That's a great question. You hired a great guy here to do this. That's a great question. You don't lose control.
Why?
I would say you gain control.
Oh, better.
I feel like I have more control because of the system.
Why?
Because I know where everything is at all times. And I don't have to keep it all in my head. Like it's within the tools and the dashboards and all the things that we've created through the EOS structure over the last 7 or 8 years. We have our Monday meetings, and by the end of the day on Monday, I pretty much know where everything is and, what all's going on, and, everybody's kind of synced up, and then, Tuesday through Friday, we're off and running.
I'll answer that question this way. Within EOS, we have a tool called the Vision Traction Organizer, which is a 2-page, not 22, not 200, strategic plan. And you work together with your leadership team to create that 2-page strategic plan. So everybody's very clear on where we're going. And then as Scott has alluded to, you get a weekly update on how you're progressing towards that long-term goal. And so, there's 3 different major meetings in EOS system. That's an annual meeting where you determine kind of where we're going for that year. We have quarterly meetings to see how we're progressing towards that those annual goals. Then we have weekly meetings to see how we're progressing towards those quarterly goals. And so as an owner, you know exactly where you are all the time, and everybody understands where you're going. To Scott's point, I don't know how you get much more control. And if it starts veering off path, you make the adjustment, right? So many people are trying to control from the top down, and there's no way to control. Let's say you have a company of 50 employees. There's no way. But if you have the VTO in place and have the system of meetings and reporting, and discipline and accountability is the piece that's missing from so many organizations. I ask companies, we have a 90-minute meeting, which is kind of the introduction to EOS and whether it's a fit for them. And I ask all those teams, rate your level of accountability in your organization 1 to 10. Usually that number averages 3 to 4. If you don't have accountability in your organization, it's going to be real hard to get where you want to go.
Yeah, to reach your goals.
So you started to say a second ago the reason you decided to be an EOS implementer.
I love the system. The system works. My unique ability is to coach, teach, and facilitate individuals and people. And to me, that was a way to use my unique ability in serving others. Scott referenced earlier that when he was my client as a fractional CFO, I brought us other material. It's this, I love being able to help individuals and organizations achieve their personal and business. In fact, I say my personal vision is to learn and help others grow in their relationships with God and man. And to me, EOS is a great way to help people realize their goals, aspirations, and help them realize and be their best selves.
You're listening, you're watching. I hope what you hear from this is you have some kind of operating system in the business that you lead or own. Is that described by chaos and every detail is tied up in your brain? Or do you have a system that frees you and gives you more control by delegating, elevating, and creating systems and process that allow your company to one day be more enjoyable and more profitable. Thank you very much for joining us on Decision Points. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis.
Appreciate it.